Hello, this is Midnight Episode Radio 3. While I was talking to a colleague today, I realized that there's a bunch of confusion on 5G. People don't really know what 5G is or how it differs from 4G, how it's going to get to us, and the things that it's going to do. A lot of people think it's just faster internet and they can't really understand the use case or the application of it in the real world. 4G was the thing that changed the internet for a lot of us, even though people don't realize it. So when 3G came out, most of what you could do was browse pretty simple web pages, um, submit a few forms. Cloud application wasn't really possible. Streaming video on 3G was janky. You couldn't stream anything in HD. Photo sharing was still possible, but the internet really started to kick off when 4G came around. LTE made an even bigger difference. LTE allowed things like gaming, really nice satellite photos on Google Maps, accurate navigation, live streaming video. A lot of things came and became possible. Industries were created, entire job categories were created, largely because of the switch to 4G and LTE. And 5G is going to kind of do the same thing. 5G is going to allow for a whole new level of internet-based applications that includes high-speed transmission data for medical applications. You can start doing remote surgery, things that can't have any latency or lag. You can do massive scale gaming, kind of like what Stadia promises. You can replace your home fiber connection with 5G. You can use it for AR applications where you're looking through glasses or a camera that projects the real world and overlays it with information. There are a lot of different applications for 5G. 5G is going to be pretty incredible when it comes at scale. It's only in a few test cities right now. I'm not sure which cities they are, but they're not any of the large ones because population density would be too high and the infrastructure too expensive to build. This is another thing that people don't really know much about is the infrastructure. The infrastructure for 5G presents a few problems and people don't really know how to feel about it. The truth is that there just isn't enough information out there yet for people to understand what the health effects of a 5G network will bring. So one of the major things that would come with the 5G network is a bunch of new towers. Now, 3G, 4G, 2G all took advantage of a massive infrastructure network that already exists. These massive cell towers, you've probably seen them in pictures before. They make you keep away from them because they're highly magnetic and highly charged. Usually behind fencing, they're big. You see them on side of hills and things like that. Those towers are not sufficient for 5G. Now, the big difference between 4G and 5G is the rate of data transmission. Now, the only way to achieve that data transmission, as far as we know, is to use a higher bandwidth. Right now, the spectrum bandwidth that we're using doesn't carry that much information, but it does so at a very reasonable distance. We can get 4G connections through we can get them through objects, we can get them through buildings, through brick, we can get them through metal sometimes, and you can be quite far away from the closest tower and still receive a signal. This is not the case with 5G. 5G needs to be right up in front of you. In fact, it actually needs to be within line of sight. So if you've got even a wall, maybe glass or something like that in the way, you're going to receive either a degraded or not going to have a signal at all. What does that mean? That means to support populations at large, you need to have tons and tons of these miniature cell towers everywhere. Some of the plans that have been proposed by local governments and infrastructure companies include attaching them like 4 or 5 to each lamppost on a street and to rooftops and to other existing infrastructure poles, power poles and things like that, so that new infrastructure doesn't have to be built from the ground up. At first glance, that might sound okay. The problem is that the change in technology brings some risks that we don't fully understand. So the first risk is the change in waves. So we're going to start using millimeter waves, which are thicker and they have a much higher frequency, which is why they're able to carry more data. But it's harder for those things to travel long distances, hence they need to be closer to us. We don't know the effects of those waves passing through our bodies. There isn't enough research, data, anything long term to even see what 4G and 3G do to our bodies, really. We've only had this technology for about 20 years if you really push it. Now we're surrounded by these waves all the time. This wasn't the case before. There are no long-term studies that we can cite to look at how the radiation or the waves passing through our bodies will actually affect us. Our actual mobile devices themselves have a federal limit on how much radiation they can emit. It's limited to 1.6 watts per kilogram. That number generally, though, doesn't mean much, as it's not possible to test usage and activity properly, because everyone uses their phones differently. I use my phone in a very heavy way, and some people only use them for texting and calling. So it's really hard to determine what the factors are and how it will affect the body long term. Regardless, there will be a massive push towards 5G. 5G is not only something that the government is interested in, it's something that China is interested in. Now, if China is interested in it, then we're interested in it, and we're going to make a push for it. Now, there's a race to be the first ones with this technology for the population, and I think we're going to get there first. And that's largely because we have the existing science in place, and we have a lot of people that are already able to access high-speed internet. So it's not going to be that dramatic of a shift. It will just flow through smoother here. The technology is already here. Much of the actual science and technology behind it was actually created in this country, so we're definitely ahead of the game there, and it's going to enable a bunch of new industries. It's going to be most important in the beginning for businesses, that they'll be able to scale applications in a way that they haven't been able to before. And then 5G phones will start hitting the market. We'll start to see more things using 5G, and that's when it'll really start to take off. So I would expect 5G to start taking off maybe in 2 or 3 years from now, which is still quite a bit of time. But regardless of the health risk, you can definitely expect these to pop up everywhere. The commercial value of these things is far too great for people to stick around and not do anything about it. So 5G is definitely coming. Definitely coming. The other thing that happened today was Julian Assange got arrested. The Ecuadorian embassy revoked its diplomatic immunity for him. He's been pushing their buttons for a while. He's been using their internet services and their money and their public tax money to continue doing some of the things that WikiLeaks was involved in. This was expressly forbidden by the Ecuadorian government, and he continued to do it anyway. They warned him a few times, and they ended up revoking his diplomatic immunity. Now, the reason he was arrested was because he skipped bail in London for sexual molestation charges in Sweden. Charges that were dropped in 2017, but British authorities still arrested him for skipping bail for that charge, which was dropped. Now that they have him in custody, the United States revealed that we have a case built up against him, and we'd like to have him in our custody. And I'm pretty sure the British will pass him over. We have a pretty good extradition treaty with those guys. So we're going to see Assange in the States pretty soon. As far as I can tell, he'll probably be in the Southern District of Virginia, where a lot of the military trials and a lot of the sensitive, more sensitive security related trials go down. Right now, he's only being charged for breaking the hacking statutes because he actually got Chelsea Manning to do the stealing for him, for which he was already tried, sentenced, and then pardoned by President Obama. So most likely, at least, and this is what analysts think. Analysts think that the United States government is going to bring new charges up against Julian Assange after he gets here, before he is formally written up and given a trial and all that stuff. So there's going to be a bit of drama there. He's taken advantage of the United States for sure. He definitely did expose a few things that a lot of people think that the public should have known. A lot of sneaky stuff goes down. Some of it was definitely harming to the goals of the United States government and their interest in our national security. So he's definitely going to have to pay a certain price for his actions. It'll be a very interesting time. Thanks for watching.